Seekest thou the road to all that's foul and fair?
Hey friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all are doing well. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a witch and I make content about it. You can find me across most social media platforms. All of my links are going to be down below in the description. If you are interested in messaging me, the best place that I'm going to be the most responsive will be my Instagram. I'll try to remember to leave my handle like over here somewhere. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. Your support really means a lot to me. If you like this video, make sure that you give it a like, so that way I kind of know what sort of content you guys would like to see more of. As always, feel free to leave any comments or questions down below, and let's get into today's video. So this video is kind of gonna be like piggybacking off of another video that I made. I get a lot of questions, of DMs, of comments in regards to Covenry and like coven life. And I find this interesting, but I also find this kind of, how do I want to say it? I find this to be like an interesting phenomenon because it appears to me as if most of our community is made up of solitaries. And I say community, kind of in finger quotes here, because I think that the neo-pagan and the witchcraft communities are really kind of these umbrella terms, and they occasionally overlap, but mostly in these communities you have like traditions of denomination, and then you have people that fall within that, and then you have a lot more people that are non-denominational or would be considering themselves like a solitary practitioner. And I want to say before I get into this, like I said in my previous video when I was talking about sort of coven structure and how we structure ours in our coven, the way that I've understood the structure within the American traditional folkloric witchcraft tradition, and just from what I've been able to read about and see, because a lot of this information, while it does pertain to initiatory groups, and if you were to be a part of one, or if you are part of one, then chances are a lot of this is not necessarily new information to you. And of course, every coven, like every group, has autonomy. So they're going to, you know, embody different things different ways. In the video where I was talking about coven structure, I wanted to make a point that while I do run a coven and while I am in a tradition, that does not mean that I don't also practice outside of that. Like, I still consider myself to have a solitary practice as well, even though I'm not necessarily like a solitary witch, if that makes sense. Basically, the work that I do in group and the work that I do on my own are different. They're related, of course, because I'm still in this tradition. So I have like a modality of practice that I incorporate because I'm in this tradition. But there are definitely personal elements and personal work that I do just myself as a solitary. So I would say if you are interested in any group, or if you are already part of a group, and if that is something that is not entertained or allowed, I consider that to be kind of a red flag. I feel like you should be able to have your own practice as well as work within a group. Of course, every group is also going to have, you know, ordains or witch laws around, you know, what that looks like, how that might look. It's going to vary from group to group. This video is not going to be about red flags, but I think I've made a video about some of that in the past. If you'd like me to make another coven red flags video, comment down below and let me know. But this video, like I said, is going to be kind of piggybacking off of a previous video that I made talking about coven structure. And in that video, which I'll try to remember to like link it down below, but in that video, I was talking specifically about initiation and what that looks like. as much as I'm able to speak about it, because obviously this is a initiatory group and experience. And so getting up here on Beyonce's internet and giving you a step-by-step inner look at how all that works would be going against oaths and things that we swear into when we go through initiation. However, the degree system is not necessarily unique to modern witchcraft, and even other magical orders like the Masons, which they might not consider themselves to be affiliated with the craft, and they might not consider themselves to really be a magical order. I know that they often refer to themselves as like a philanthropic fraternity. I think those are very poetic words, but degrees are found within multiple different traditions, and the degrees relate to knowledge, wisdom, experience, as well as responsibility within a coven. So in that video, I talked about first degree, second degree, third degree, and some general information about what those are in my own understanding, well as how we handle the process of initiation to first degree, second, and third. Of course, again, I'm only going to give the disclaimer once. I feel like I gave the disclaimer 2 or 3 times in the other video that I'm referencing, but I am only going to be speaking from my own coven that I run and facilitate, as well as the tradition from which we practice from. So to give you that analogy again, even though I don't think it's the best analogy, but it's kind of like if you have 6 Methodist churches downtown, they're all Methodist, but chances are if you were to go to each church, the way that the worship team or the church crew or whatever we want to call it, all of those individual people are going to be different at every church. And so the church is going to feel different from their sister churches, if that makes sense. However, if you were to pluck people from the different churches and ask them and interview them about their beliefs and their values and their cosmology, at the end of the day, they're all Methodists, right? So they're probably going to have quite a bit of overlap, even though their churches might get down with the get down a little bit differently. All of that is to be said. Everything that you hear in this video is from my experience. It is from my practice. It is from the tradition that I am training and trained in. And it is from my experience of running a initiatory coven here in person locally. I feel like over the 8 years or so that I've been doing this, I've really learned a lot about people and about myself and about group management. Not that necessarily being a third degree or an HP is the equivalent of being a manager, but I will say that my previous experiences in salon management and retail management have actually taught me a lot about group work and group magic. So you don't necessarily have to learn every mystery from a traditional source. You can absolutely glean a lot from mentors even outside of witchcraft. I know that when I was going to hair shows and conventions and workshops, there were amazing and talented hairdressers that were presenting that also imparted on me a sense of ethics and like how to work with people. And that's a really big part of Covenry, is how to work with your coven mates. When we are initiates of the same coven, our hex threads, our soul threads, get sort of tied in a way. The threads sort of interlope, if you will. And so the work that one witch is doing is going to affect the entirety of the coven. Things that one witch has going on is going to affect the rest of the coven, for better, for worse, for the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is one of the reasons why initiatory orders, 1, tend to be much more closed, and 2, have a very streamlined process of what initiation looks like, how that works, and tend to be kind of picky and choosy. I don't believe anyone has the authority or the right to tell anyone, you know, who can and cannot be a witch. I'm not interested in that. I don't think that anyone can necessarily remove anyone from the wider community. I kind of like to use the analogy of like neighborhoods here. If the craft is this neighborhood, There's many houses in this neighborhood. There's plenty of solitaries with houses. And then you might also have like group houses or multifamily home houses. And those might be the houses of like covens that have multiple witches that have a key to that house. And they can absolutely bring people into their house and whatever, but you get a key through the process of initiation into that particular house. So if you don't necessarily have a key, you're not necessarily entitled just to walk in, just like anyone else is not entitled just to walk into your house. We have locks on our front doors for a reason. Gatekeeping is not always a bad thing. This video, to just kind of like move forward past some of my rambling, I want to sort of piggyback, like I've said, off of the structure video. So that's talking about the degrees. If you're interested in learning more about the degrees within traditional witchcraft, you can check out that video. But in this video, I'm going to talk about the specialties, or even sometimes like the offices. And this is not going to be a completely comprehensive video breaking down A, B, and C, but I'm just going to be giving you a little bit of information here in this video. I feel like in order to really do this topic justice, it's probably going to involve a part 2. However, we'll see how much we can get through here. So again, my information is coming from my own practice and experience, as well as my coven's practice and experience, as well as the tradition from which I am coming from. I do also want to say that if you are interested in learning more about American traditional folkloric witchcraft, and if you can't find a group in your area, there is a thing that I've mentioned here on my channel before. It's called the Red Thread Academy. It's an online self-paced academy, and there's a couple different tiers of how much involvement you want out of your academy, but for the most part, the base cost is just buying the book. And then there is a Discord community that you can join if you are interested. And a disclaimer on this, I'm not sponsored in any way, nor do I make any commissions. I am just speaking about this because I know how lonely and challenging it can feel to be interested in traditional craft or initiatory work, but not be able to find people of like minds. And while online groups are not necessarily the same as in-person groups, I think they both have their own value for sure. This is a really great way to learn some of the more foundational aspects of the tradition of American folkloric witchcraft. And you can absolutely study and even take degrees within the tradition. So with that being said, I'm also pulling some information from the second tier textbook. The Red Thread Academy is a 3-year course. I am currently in my 3rd year now, but I wanted to pull this book out and I wanted to use this as a bit of a reference because there's some really good information here that I think that even solitary witches, even witches that aren't necessarily in the American traditional folkloric sort of vibe, could still pull from and benefit from in their own practice. So in a coven, it is really important to have witches of different modalities and with different sort of focus areas or specialties. It is, in my opinion, that when you are attending a ritual or when you are in a coven, you are not simply witnessing your religion and practice, you are actually embodying it and experiencing it. It would be so dull to me as an HP to sit and just have some sort of sermon or lecture. And when I've gone to other rituals and that has been the experience, I've left kind of feeling, I don't know, underwhelmed. I like the idea with magical group working and covenry that there is a group of people that are working together towards a common goal, and they all have a different area of focus and power that they are bringing to the ritual. It's not just some 3rd degree or high priestess that's just like running the show and everyone else just sits on their ass and watches. Like, that's not fun or fair to anyone. So how do we define some of these focus areas? And even for the solitaries watching, which I know that there's plenty of you as well, hi, welcome. You can pull inspiration from these yourself. You don't necessarily need a full group in order to work with some of these specialties, and many of you probably in some ways already are. So the first specialty would be artisan, and I'm going to read a little bit here about it. Artisan is a broad category that encompasses all of the witchcrafting specialties that involve making magical objects. An artisan witch is skilled and passionate about crafting physical items for the use in their craft. They may or may not sell their goods as well. Additionally, many items they make for daily use are imbued with magical energy and intention. So these are very much like the physical crafters, making spell bottles, maybe making incense, maybe making wands, doing some metal work, making blades, making stang toppers. I mean, the possibilities here are really kind of endless. All of these specialties are fairly open-ended, and some of them also kind of bleed into each other. But the artisan in the coven is the one who's making and preparing these objects to be used, A, in their own craft, but B, in their group work. The next one would be bard, which I'm sure if some of you are like nerds like me, we instantly go to like the realm of fantasy. I live for that. A witch who is a bard is drawn to the role that creates and understands their world and expresses their magic spiritually via music and art. So these are witches that might be performing a song, a dance, making music, writing poetry. They're bringing that art into the ritual. Next, we would have conjurer. Conjurers are, think of them as kind of like summoners. In some parts of the world and in certain time periods, a witch has been synonymous with being a conjurer. While most traditional folkloric witches work with spirits to some extent, such as their spirit court. In different terms, a spirit court is basically your group of spirit guides, guardians, ancestors, gods, familiars, you name it. So it's recognized that there are those among us who call upon spirits frequently and interact intimately with the unseen world. The conjurer works closely with land wights, ancestors, daemons, angels, fae, the she, or other types of spirits in order to accomplish nearly any type of magical goal. So within a group, these would be individuals that are making spirit pacts for themselves, for the group, that are maybe introducing spirits in order to venerate them, work with them, honor them. These are people that are frequently engaging with spirits and are kind of like, you could even see conjurers, I feel like, in a group as like the middleman between some of the spirit friends and business partners and the coven, sort of keeping those pacts good, keeping that communication good, and also summoning spirits into the ritual. The next one here, I think, is something that's very popular even outside of traditional craft, and that would be the healer. Healing traditions within witchcraft are numerous, and there is much lore surrounding the witch as the midwife for both birth and death. Many contemporary witches are strong, energetic healers who expand their skills to include both alternative and established medicine. Witches who are healers are knowledgeable in healing techniques that can include physical, energetic, or spiritual modalities. They might include herbalism, massage, acupuncture, tonal healing, energy manipulation, journeying, flight, stones, and more. The way that you take the role of healer can be translated in so many ways. We can be talking about making healing salves, healing tonics or brews, also healing culinary arts. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can take this. You can also kind of think of like green witchery. I don't really like that term, but you can think of that sort of path as well. And you can also kind of flip this in a way and think that, like that old phrase, like if you can't harm, you can't heal. If you can't heal, you can't harm, which I'm not sure how much I necessarily subscribe to that fully. But in general, I agree with it. And I think that the healer can also be like the poisoner, right? So it can kind of go both ways there, like a lot of these can. Next, we would have the witch as the seer. Witches have a long and notorious history as diviners, oracles, and the seer skills of the witch have been sought after with fear, curiosity, and awe since ancient times. As a seer, the witch seeks patterns, guidance, and wisdom via divination, oracle, trance, and other visionary states. So these could very much be like the psychic readers, the tarot girly pops, the rune readers, the bone casters. These could be the astrologers of the coven that are working for prophecy. This could be in relation to a conjurer or another specialty, the votary that we'll talk about. All of this can kind of blend over. And also, I feel like a well-rounded witch in general should be comfortable with levels of divination. But there's definitely people that choose to take that as a specialty and focus on developing their skills psychically and energetically even more. Then we have votary, which is one I just mentioned. And this is one that I, in my second year, spent a full year and a day worth of study working as a devotee of the White Goddess, and more specifically, studying the Arabian mysteries. I have videos here on my channel about that. We're not going to get into that in this video. Most pervasive images of a priest or priestess in the ancient world are not of clergy ministering to the people of the congregation, but of sacred functionaries who carry out the tasks associated with honoring or caring for deity. The witch who is a votary performs works of service and connection to a particular god or power. They seek to better understand the divine through deep personal connection. They may also act as a bridge between that god and the group. So I think a lot of people tend to think of votary as the high priestess or as the third degree, but really there can be even multiple people specializing as votary. Every group, of course, is going to be a little bit different. And there's, of course, nuance. Every group has their autonomy. But in my opinion, all of these specialties, offices, can be embodied regardless of what degree you are, and also regardless of if you're even in an initiatory group. You can take time to dedicate yourself to exploring one of these every year and go through all of them. The next and final one that we have would be warden. So most traditions require that all witches have some basic knowledge and skill in warding magic. Those defenses established to protect the individual, the home, the person, or group. A great number of craft traditions assign a ritual role as a sentry, guardian, warrior to protect the group during magical operations. And some traditions recognize the call of a few witches to take on this role, called warden here, on a larger, more frequent scale. So I feel like warden can really be personified through a witch that is focusing on offensive and defensive magic, a witch that is focusing on social justice efforts, using magic to enact real change in the tangible mid-world. Also a witch that is keeping the sacred space safe within ritual. So while that might be like a sentry, like someone who literally walks the circle while the ritual is going on to sort of keep an eye on both the seen and the unseen, or while that looks like a witch who brings wards of protection for the coven at the Sabbats. That's just a little bit of information about these particular specialties. Specialties are like areas of focus for personal development. There are definitely offices too, like a warden can be an office, a votary can be an office. Offices are kind of like roles that people will take within the coven. So you might see themes like the Oak and Holly King or the Gold and Silver Queen as sort of assist roles within a coven. You might also find that there are maids or dames or devils or consorts. You might also find that there are treasurers or heralds or people that handle social media. There are a lot of other titles, and I'm happy to do a video exploring more of those offices in a separate video, but I just wanted to touch on these specialties because I think that all of these are really quintessential aspects of witchcraft. And I think all of us, regardless of if we are in a coven or not, can benefit by dedicating ourselves for a minimum of a year and a day to really focusing on one of these areas. Not that you can't enjoy, practice, and focus on other aspects as well, of course you can, but to have a particular area of focus is really beneficial for yourself as a solitary, but also within a group, because then it also provides everyone a sense of role within the ritual. By doing so also kind of helps distribute the magical weight. So it's also not just on the shoulders of the ritual leaders that are facilitating the ritual. Again, when you're part of a coven or when you're going to a ritual, if you're anything like me, you want to actually experience it hands-on and feel a part of it, not just witness it. I hope that this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments regarding what we've talked about or covered today, again, feel free to leave those down below. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot, boost me up in the algorithm, and it also lets me know what kind of content you guys enjoy seeing. If you want to make sure that you see more of me, make sure that you are subscribed and hit the bell, please, so that way you'll be notified every time I go live or every time I upload. If you have any video suggestions that you would like to make, feel free to leave those down below. I'm happy to entertain them. I'm not going to promise that I'm going to do any of them, but I love getting them, I love receiving them, and I'm happy to entertain the idea. This video and my last video that I recorded about the structure within traditional craft covens was actually a video request. So I do make them. Even if I don't seem like I always respond to them, I'm happy to get them. Anyways, I hope that you are well. I hope that you all are blessed, living loudly and in color. Make sure that you go drink yourself some water. Take care of yourself, witch. And until next time, blessed be, and I will see you in hell. Bye.
Gather, sisters, fire, water, earth, and air. Darkest hour, wake thy power, earthly and divine. Burn and brew with coven true, and glory shall be thine. Down, down the road, down the witch's road. Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Circle sewn with fate, unlock thy hidden